I don't like to just straight up say, hey, I was right, was I not? Or anything like that. But look, if there's things that I'm theorizing about or there's things that I'm saying, I do think that it's very important that certainly when it either comes into fruition or there's another example of it, that I point it out because I want you guys to understand that I'm not just talking out of my ass. This isn't just clicks. Or I just do it specifically for that. These are things that I genuinely believe in and things that I've analyzed, right? Jerry Conway, who you may know, he started, he was a co-creator of Punisher. I don't know if he's still doing stuff with Marvel. I know he's done some stuff with DC as well. But he says this: I love that this is the ultimate. Well, let me set the scene. This is in response to he's obviously quote tweeting Jason Aaron, who's the writer of the tokenized Thor, as well as doing current Avengers run, if I'm not mistaken, as well as some other stuff he did with War of the Realms as well. And with the news being announced, tokenized Thor will be brought into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know my thoughts. I have multiple videos explaining how trash Jane Foster's story is. But I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Not for this video. He says, Jerry Conway, that is, I love that this is the ultimate existence. Fuck you. From the cosmos to the comics gators who attacked the storyline. Obviously, it was not just comics gators. And by the way, I mean to point this out, he called himself passionate libtard. And if you go to his page, he says a lot of just generic mainstream leftism. He's just an NPC at this point. Obviously co-creator of one of my favorite characters, Punisher, but he fell off the deep end. Nonetheless, this guy is proving in the sense, and obviously it was not just comics gators that had a problem with this garbage. It was trash, lousy, lazy, and it being brought into the Marvel Cinematic Universe after we saw that it was lousy and lazy and trash. Obviously, there was going to be a lot of people that spoke against it. It was not just comics gators that were against that. It was people that, like myself, are sick of seeing sort of this reskin and regendering of characters, certainly in this day and age when there's so much access to money, so much access to promotional. You got all these different promotional schemes and platforms that you can use that you didn't have access to decades ago. So there's no excuse to not create new characters that are fresh. Instead of trying to force Jane Foster on us, as you know, going from Thor to All Mother back to Thor now to be a Valkyrie, like they're just trying to force her into this. But nonetheless, what Jerry here is proving is that, and let me go to myself real quick. What he's proving is that he's more, and this is something that I brought up, these guys are more so worried about sticking it to the dissenters, which are comic book fans, right? And promoting their social beliefs. And if they have to, can use the comic book to sort of put this shit out here, right? That's what he's highlighting here. And also, when I say that, look, man, I know that I'm one of the YouTubers that, certainly when it comes to strict comics, that talks against a lot of this stuff. And I was reading that latest issue of Avengers, and it sounds so weird that they had She-Hulk beating up on that troll, and he's saying some of the things, right, that I say and other individuals like us say. And then you have in the War of the Realms where, they keep highlight, they have Odin basically represent us, saying, hey, what the hell, you gave her your name. She doesn't wear, that's your name, that's you. And then they have to try to funnel his own opinion, like basically get over it and fuck off through Thor, right? So I know these fools are paying attention to that, right? But they're not using the comic book to tell good stories, do the characters justice or anything like that. It's more to definitely in this day and age with the Trump derangement syndrome out there and everybody wanting to have, to signal and have their own political opinions. They can't keep that separate from the art in the sense that they have to have their own personal social agenda and political agendas be sort of in the actual dialogue and in the actual comic books. That's what we're getting here. And there's a lot of people have a problem with this. Not necessarily that politics or social issues are addressed, it's that it's too on the nose, and it's basically the writers and the people that are part of it just funneling is one-sided mainstream leftism and just funneling that through the comic books, right? But as Jerry's suggesting here is that, hey, man, I like the fact that we're just saying fuck you all to these people that were like, fuck this storyline, it's trash. That's where we're at with it, man. And I've said this time and time again. I've said this multiple times, man. They are more worried about sticking it to the guys that dislike them. So when you get these people, oh, you think Marvel watches your YouTube videos? Like, first of all, motherfucker, I know a lot of writers and artists that are currently writing for Marvel, that reach out to me, that I know personally. You know, I would never out them like that because I don't want them to put their jobs or anything in jeopardy if that's something that takes seriously. But I can mention like the Soska sisters, who I'm friends with, who wrote the current Black Widow run. Those are my homies, and it's not a secret. You know what I mean? So I know motherfuckers is watching. Like, that ain't no secret. Like, I know I'm being told that. Like, not to believe it or not, and maybe this is some upside, believe it or not, there are people that are part of Marvel that are sick of the bullshit, that are with Marvel. I just want to keep that in mind, right? Nonetheless, Jerry is more worried about sticking it to folks that just don't like what's taking place, right? It's not about focusing on that, right? Developing characters, having legitimate and worthwhile, exhilarating storylines. It's about, okay, if we can stick it to them, let's stick it to them. And Jerry's saying, I love it. Because, again, that's what they're about, right? That's what they're about. It's obviously going to bleed. Even if they don't say it, it's going to bleed into the comic. And we picked that shit up. I sniffed that shit out. But there was something else interesting, and I'm going to pull this up real quick, that was said by the same guy, which also highlights how fucking clueless he is. Let me see if I can find this. Okay. Somebody shared this with me. Where is it at? Fuck. Here we go. So Jerry Conway also says this. You know, Dan Didio said he was saying some deals about the old comics and how some of those old comics are selling more than newer comics. He even quotes it as San Diego Comic-Con DC's Dan regrets success of old comics reprints. Obviously, what that's saying is that there are people that are more intrigued in wanting to buy older comics than they are when it comes to the newer comics. Even when they're being reprinted, right? So people want that material and they're more intrigued by that material and they're showing it by voting with their dollar, right? He says, here's a thought, if you're a publisher or an editor, ask why older comics are selling better than current comic material or current material. Ask what the people who created comics back then knew that you don't. Here's the thing, Jerry Conway. Part of it is part of that dumb shit that you were just talking, you were just co-signing unless you know how fucking clueless you are. You can try to suppress the people that buy the actual comics, right? Because those are you have those outliers who will co-sign anything Marvel does. And definitely with the political shift where everybody's they're wearing the politics. They used to not do that. Now everybody's wearing the goddamn politics on their sleeve. And then it's being done too on the nose, right? Where we know exactly like, all right, I can read this dialogue, right? I can read Greg Rucka's Lewis Lane issue number 1, right? And I can read that, and by the last issue, I'm willing to bet 100 bones right now that this guy is a deranged leftist, because just considering the actual dialogue and the plot line. And then I go to, look him up, and that's exactly what he is. It lets you know how he's arrogant, but it lets you know how fucking clueless he is. People are attracted to that shit because it wasn't a whole lot of dumb shit that we're having to deal with right now. Not to mention all of the fucking, you're putting out way too many books, the variants and all, like, that's a whole other issue. But when it comes to the straight up content, this is part of it. Some of the same shit Jerry just co-signed in another tweet. It's that. You guys are putting your agendas and letting them fucking overflow into the actual comic. That's why the shit's not selling like it is. Those normies, those fucking SJWs that you guys think that you're appealing to, they don't buy your shit, man. Let me go back to myself. This is the reality of the situation, right? And this is a harsh reality that they won't admit. They'll point to, well, I believe in these sort of politics, and I'm a comic book guy. I'm not saying that there aren't comic book guys that are also SJWs or into the whole mainstream leftism or anything like that. That's not what I'm suggesting. I very well know they exist. But to think that that's just representative of the vast majority of comic book fans that you're going to see at your local comic book shop every Wednesday, you're fucking deranged, bro. You're fucking deranged. Those people that are signaling, that are tweeting all day long, that are, slay queen, those guys, they don't buy comics. They might Google it real fast to make, try to be a part of the conversation and act like they were experts. You think these normies knew who the fuck Jane Foster's Thor was before it was announced? Absolutely not. If they were, your books would have been selling. Nonetheless, they don't buy comics. Those people that you're trying to appeal to don't buy comics. I'm not saying that it's just a bunch of anarcho-capitalists and anarchists and libertarians like myself that are buying comics. That's not what I'm saying. But there's some. What I'm saying is that a lot of people, the vast majority of us, prefer legitimate, new, fresh stories based on some of these characters that we've grown to love, or even new characters, obviously. Minus the bullshit. We don't want to read a comic and feel like we're watching CNN, bro. That's not what we want to do. Your forced diversity efforts, your forced tokenized efforts, we don't want that, bro. That's why they're not selling like that. The people that you're trying to appeal to, and I'm not saying that's exclusively why. I can't say that, but I think that's the big part of it. We can go into the, again, variance and what that does, and how much the comics cost and how much are being put out, how difficult it is to keep up with your characters, these constant fucking reboots, and people are confused because you have 17 damn Spider-Mans going on at the same damn time, most of which are taking place in the same damn universe. Like, I get it. There's other things that are problems. Now, I've talked about this shit on this channel. But to act like the content isn't the issue, you're losing it, right? If people are willing to buy reprints of old material, meaning that, hey, they're not first prints, they're not even going to be worth as much. People just want those stories. That's because of the content right now is lacking. And until these writers, your editors, and so forth address that, it's going to be like this. If you're going to keep signaling, if you're going to keep trying to appeal to it's a loud minority, I will give you that. But most of those guys definitely that even watch, for example, the MCU, they don't read comics. They're not. Look what Carol Danvers did and how many times they still had to reboot. Now, they're probably gonna reboot her again, and how that comic after issue 1, like most comics do, but this specific comic fell off a goddamn cliff. The current Captain Marvel, even with a movie, even with her being shoehorned in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and all these people co-signing everything that's being done surrounding this character, it still fell off that cliff because they don't buy comics. Normies don't buy comics. As simple as that. So people that have completely jumped the ship, they're like, fuck the current comic book shit. I will buy old shit. I will stick to reading back issues. I will stick to reading things that I know are going to be legit, because there's a lot of comic books out there and it's hard to read everything. So you can still get some old shit that you may have never read before. And they'd rather do that than read the new shit you're putting out. And it's a content issue, and you guys are too arrogant to address it, because you rather blame guys like myself. And then you rather go blame those other, go blame the comic gators and shit like that. All the comic gators, for example, all they did was take advantage of that demand, right? That market that rose. People just tired of your shit. And instead of addressing hey, why people are tired of our shit, you shift blame. And then why aren't the comic books selling? Motherfucker, man. Those people buy that's part of your community. No matter if you disagree politically or socially or anything like that, that's still part of the comic book community. And if you were putting out legit shit, they'd be willing to buy your shit. There wouldn't be no incentive for Comicsgate, for example, to exist. It would be no incentive for them to exist if they weren't dealing with the bullshit that they have to deal with right now when they have to go pick up a current comic. It was artificial because you guys, it was a self-detonating thing. You guys created that problem. Comicsgate is nothing but a response community that tried to fill this void and take advantage of that demand, right? But that demand is still there, and it was created because you guys were fucking up in terms of the content. Fix the content, people will start buying your shit again. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. And those loud minority, those loud minorities that you are trying to appeal to, in which will, oh yes, we want tokenized this. Oh yes, every time you do something stupid like that, they may get an issue just to say that they have it, but they're not gonna keep up with the line because comic books aren't their thing. I challenge you guys, man. I say this shit all the time, bro. Go to your local comic book shop. Just people watch, homie. Fucking people watch. People watch the people that are buying the comics, that are actually going there and are getting like numerous copies of current, let's say, mainstream Marvel and DC runs. They don't look like these weird colored fucking hair colored fucking weirdos, man, talking about social justice. That's not them. It's Joe Blows, man. That's just the reality of the situation. I go, for example, the local comic book shop I go to, I can count on every Wednesday there's gonna be myself and a couple of guys that are the ones, a really old guy. He usually gets there before I do. They have his pull list ready. He buys $100 worth of comics a week. Same with me. And we just look like how we look like, bro. It's just like we're Joe Blow. We're the community, bro. We're the ones actually buying your shit. And it's an insult, man, when you do this old corny shit. And yes, again, those fucking, you're gonna get those that are like, man, I'm into this social justice shit. I also buy comics. I'm not saying that there aren't those types out there, but there's a lot of frauds out there who want to just be a part of the conversation and will Google shit 5 minutes before they typed it to you. Those guys aren't buying comics. Not in the sense of being very consistent with it. This is just a reality of the situation. I actually, even your little Comic-Cons, even those motherfuckers that go to your little Comic-Cons, bro, those guys aren't reading comics either. I'm just being, look, man, if you know anything else, Young Group of 5'9" gonna keep it 100 with you, dog. Even the motherfuckers at the Comic-Cons oppose us, bro. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm sure it's a great atmosphere, great time. But they ain't the one, even if they snapping, yes, slay queen, clap, clap. That does not mean that those are going to translate into sales. Maybe for movies, but not for comic books. It's a content problem. And guys like Jerry Conway, who are so worried about sticking it, happy to see shit as a writer, as a producer, as a shot caller in this game. He'd rather see the comic skaters, which they just apply that to anybody that is anti-nonsense. He'd rather see them being, no matter how shit the storyline was, he's pumped up about the fact that he's sticking it to the comic skaters. That's where the fuck we're at. They're worried about that shit. It's a fucking joke, yo. And these guys are just simply too arrogant to actually acknowledge the fact that, okay, look, maybe the people we've been bringing on to write our books, and not even just new guys, even older guys, again, certainly politically, because everybody's wanting to wear their politics on their sleeves, they can't help themselves but to write the shit in the comic. They're not talented enough anymore. It's like they're losing talent, right? Like, again, that's just kind of what it is. It's not just with even the new guys. It's with guys that's been around, who people can tolerate. Greg Rucka is another one. Trump just sent him over the deep end. Now he's a deranged leftist. It happens. But until they address the content problem, they are going to continue to see not only just current comic book sales and mainstream comics not selling as much, but you're creating a demand for guys like Comicsgaters who are making literal thousands of dollars per issue, I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars just to sell a book that competes with you. Fix the content, man. That's how you solve the problem. That's how you get people back into creating comics, or more so being intrigued by your created comics, and they want to buy the comics. Fix that. But until then, until you're still trying to stick it to us, and you think that YouTubers and other guys, like, we don't matter because those loud minorities on Twitter who retweet every fucking thing you say that are not at their local comic book shop reading this shit or buying this shit, you can keep trying to appeal to them if you want to, but you're gonna keep holding them L's, and you're gonna keep wondering, why is it that the only thing that wants to sell are reprints of old fucking comics? Get a grip.